Stop reducing Mercury planet to communication. That reduction hides the real mechanism. Yes, Mercury can be linked with speech, writing, exchange, messages, and quickness of mind. But in the older talismanic view, those are not personality traits. They are surface signs of a deeper function. Mercury planet is a piece in a mechanism of transmission. Something above acts, something below receives, and between them, a chain must be built. That is why Mercury planet needed a receiver. Because in this system, an influence does not become active simply because a planet exists in the sky. The planet is only one part of the operation. A celestial force needs a path, a form, and a prepared lower thing capable of receiving it. Between the planet above and the object below, there must be names, numbers, images, characters, timing, material, intention, and a prepared form. That is the key. Mercury is not being treated here as the alchemical metal quicksilver. This is not a video about liquid mercury, metallic transformation, or laboratory symbolism. The focus is Mercury as a planet in natural and talismanic magic, a celestial body placed inside an ordered system of influence. To understand that, start with a simple image. A bronze disk of Mercury hangs above a dark stone. The disk belongs to the sky. The stone belongs to the lower world. Nothing happens if they remain separate. The question is not only what Mercury means. The question is how Mercury is received. That is where the older magical mind becomes much sharper than modern spiritual language. Modern language often says, Mercury is communication. But the talismanic view asks a stronger question. Through what does Mercury communicate? Through what form? Through what material? Through what timing? Through what intelligence? Through what receiver? This is the difference between symbolism and operation. A symbol can stay in the mind. An operation needs a structure. In the old planetary system, Mercury is not alone. The planet is surrounded by an entire pattern of mediation. There are divine names, intelligences, spirits, numbers, figures, seals, images, rings, perfumes, and planetary observations. Each layer gives the influence a path. That may sound strange at first, but the logic is clear. The higher does not simply fall into the lower. It must be translated. A celestial influence is too subtle to be treated like a physical object, so the system builds bridges. A number gives proportion. A character gives shape. A name gives direction. An image gives form. A material gives body. A perfume gives atmosphere. A timing places the whole operation inside the movement of the heavens. Mercury becomes readable because it is not only observed, it is arranged. This is why the receiver matters so much. In active and passive language, Mercury is the active side of the relation. It acts as a celestial influence, but the lower thing must be passive in the correct way. Passive does not mean weak. It means capable of receiving a specific form. Think of wax. A seal can press itself into wax because wax can receive the mark. Press the same seal into smoke and nothing remains. Press it into iron without preparation and the form does not enter. The problem is not the seal. The problem is the receiver. That is how Mercury planet works in this older logic. If the lower thing is not prepared, the influence has nowhere to settle. This is also why planetary magic is filled with objects that may seem excessive to a modern reader. Rings, seals, characters, names, images, suffugations, hours, and observations are not just decorative accessories. They are attempts to create a receiver. A ring is not only jewelry. A seal is not only drawing. A figure is not only art. A perfume is not only scent. Each one helps shape the lower field so that a higher influence can be received, held, or directed. Even something as concrete as cinnamon becomes useful here. Not because cinnamon is dramatic, but because the system does not leave influence in abstraction. It gives the planet a sensory bridge. Mercury is not only thought. Mercury has a smell, a mark, a number, a rhythm, a name, a place in a sequence. The celestial becomes material without ceasing to be celestial. That is mediation. And Mercury is especially interesting because its modern reduction is so tempting. It is easy to say, Mercury equals communication, Mercury equals mind, Mercury equals messages. But if we stop there, we turn a planetary mechanism into a personality tag. The older system is not satisfied with that. It asks, what kind of mind? Not vague mentality, directed intelligence, not random speech, ordered transmission, not casual communication, a passage between levels. This planet becomes a point where the higher can be translated into the lower without being reduced to the lower. That is why the names around Mercury matter. Names such as Tyrael and Taphtharth show that Mercury is not treated as a bare astronomical object. It is placed inside a hierarchy of mediation: planet, intelligence, spirit, name, number, figure, and object. Whether someone accepts every claim literally or not, the structure is important. Mercury is not isolated. Mercury is part of a chain, and a chain only works if the links are connected. This also protects us from a weak reading of correspondence. Correspondence does not mean anything can mean anything. It means that different levels of reality can be related through order. The higher and the lower are not the same thing, but they can reflect, receive, and answer one another through the right relation. So when Mercury planet links heaven and matter, it does not do so as a vague metaphor. It does so through a working logic. Heaven acts, the lower world receives, the operator arranges. The image contains, the number measures, the name directs, the material holds, the timing opens the condition. This is why Mercury planet needed a receiver. Without the receiver, Mercury remains an influence. With the receiver, Mercury becomes part of an operation. And this is also why the operator cannot be ignored. In older magic, the human being is not only watching the ritual object. The operator becomes part of the receiving structure. Imagination, intention, focus, purity of attention, and steadiness of mind all matter because they decide whether the operation has order or confusion. A scattered mind turns correspondences into noise. A prepared mind can read what belongs together. That is the deeper correction to the modern Mercury label. Mercury is not just thinking. It is not just speaking. It is not just being clever. In this talismanic framework, Mercury is the intelligence of passage, the power of relation, translation, and reception between superior and inferior things. It is the planet of mediation because it stands where influence must become intelligible. So if one sentence has to remain, let it be this: Mercury planet needed a receiver because celestial influence only becomes operative when the lower world is prepared to hold it. Not just communication, not just a mental label, a bridge, a chain, a passage between what acts above and what can receive below. And once that is clear, Mercury becomes much more than a symbol in the sky. It becomes a lesson in how the whole magical system thinks. Nothing acts alone, nothing receives by accident, and nothing becomes operative until relation is properly formed. Subscribe for more clear breakdowns of Hermetic and occult philosophy.